Hey guys, I am Game Advisor and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 10 useful tips for new players in SCUM. Some of these might even be useful for some more experienced players. However, these are geared towards new players who are just starting out in the game, and these are things that you wouldn't necessarily intuitively know. So let's go ahead and jump into it with number 1. First up on our list is going to be picking the right traits at the beginning of the game when you're creating your character. Now, the number one most important trait you can choose to use is going to be the engineering trait. The reason for this is because the engineering trait is vital if you ever want to build a base. It is not fun to sit there and build walls for hours on end, so I highly encourage you to at the very least get beginner if you want to build a base, and if you're playing with a lot of players, make sure that at least one of you has advanced engineering so that the others don't have to worry about it. Now, just some quick other useful traits you do want to consider to use: endurance, stealth, and sometimes melee combat or archery, depending on how you really want to play with your zombies and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the most important one is going to be that engineering trait. Next on the list for number 2 is going to be making tools from your starting clothes. Now, what you want to do is quickly go ahead and find some rocks. Usually you're going to need either 2 small ones or 1 large one. Going to go ahead and make yourself a stone knife. Once you've done that, you're then going to go ahead and cut up your shirt and pants. You're going to get 5 rags out of that. You're going to go ahead and cut 2 of those rags into rag strips. Once you've completed that, you'll then go ahead and make a improvised rope with those rag strips. Once you've got that, you'll then take the 3 cloth, the stone knife, and your improvised rope and go ahead and make yourself a backpack. This will convert your starting default 3 inventory slots up to 9. Third on our list is going to be tactically pooping. Now, yes, I know it's a little silly, but the reality is this is super useful. You always want to make sure if you have to do some bodily function within the game that you do your best to do it in a safe place, whether that's in a building, in your own base, or if you're out in the middle of nowhere, do it at the very least in a bush. You can actually track people's poop and they can hunt you down via it, so you want to do your best to hide it in such a way that other players can't see. Just a quick tip here: if you're playing a female character, your character actually tactically urinates, so you actually will squat down rather than standing up when you go to the bathroom. Fourth is going to be that you should, generally speaking, avoid swimming. Sometimes it's not an option and you have to swim, I understand that. What we're talking about here is being careful not to swim in the ocean waters too often, as there are sharks and they don't like to play nice. Now, the other time you don't want to swim is if you're carrying too much gear. You see, what happens is if you're overweight and carrying too much and then you try to jump in the water, you are going to sink and you will drown. Unfortunately, you're not able to take off the equipment once you're in the water, so you want to do your best to ensure that if you are going to take a swim for whatever reason, whether that's to cool off or anything else, you want to take off your equipment, especially your backpack and whatever is super heavy on your person, before you get into the water. We are halfway there with number 5, which is going to be that you should be taking a break. Now, I'm not saying that you need to stop playing the game. That's totally up to you, and I honestly don't care how much you play it. At the end of the day, what this means is if you hit tab like you would normally do to go to the restroom, if you go to the bottom left of that wheel, you can actually go ahead and lay down or sit down, which will cause your character to rest. Do note that if you squat, this does not take effect. It's just the same as crouching if you do the squat action. So when you do lay down or you do go ahead and sit down, your character will gain their stamina back at the maximum possible rate, no matter how much gear they're carrying. So it's just something that will get you to wherever you're going just that little bit faster. Number 6 is kind of a generalized tip here, which is the fact that supply drops explode. This happens when they hit 0, they'll blow up and you will die. Now, what you can do is you can either go to the supply drop earlier than that and lockpick each one of the little things in there in order to get yourself some loot. Now, if you don't want to lockpick it, your next option is going to be to wait till there's 25 seconds left, at which all the things inside the airdrop will then unlock for you and you don't have to lockpick it. Just just note that when you do take this option, it is very difficult if you don't know what you're doing to get away in time and get all that loot. So when I do this, I usually only go for 3 or 4 of the containers, and then I dip before it blows up and I lose it all. After that is that you need to watch your temperature, as you can overheat or you can freeze if you're not careful. Now when it comes to overheating, you can simply jump in the water in order to cool yourself down, or you can go ahead and just take some clothing off. It's not really a big deal if you take things like underwear or socks or an undershirt off, as they don't give you cargo space anyways, although I do know that some things will give you cargo space. Sometimes it's just not worth overheating. Your character loses max stamina and has a whole bunch of other negative effects if you let this happen. Now as far as freezing goes, just note that when you do start freezing, the game does not like you. You're gonna get sick, it's gonna cause issues. So as far as being cold goes, which is usually never an issue for me, just do your best to keep warm, and if you absolutely have to, you can start sprinting in order to heat yourself up if you can't create a campfire. 8th on our list today is going to be the fact that loot respawns roughly every 30 minutes if you're on normal server settings. This can be extremely useful, as once you have this timer, you can set up your loot runs to only go every 30 minutes, so you're not checking the same thing twice, knowing when that there's not going to be anything in there. Of course, this is dependent upon how the server you're playing on is set up, but generally speaking, most servers do have the average respawn of about every 30 minutes. You're going to be able to go and check that loot. If it's not 30 minutes, what you can do is get a little stopwatch, loot it, and then just AFK and keep rechecking it every so like 5 or 10 minutes to see if it's actually respawned. Alrighty, coming in at number 9, which is second to last on our list today, is going to be that you need to be careful about when you shoot your guns, especially on populated servers. What we're talking about here is just the simple fact that whenever you fire off a firearm, especially when you don't have a suppressor on it, people will hear it, and they will hear it sometimes a full square on that map or more away from you. So you want to do your absolute best to always either have a suppressor or only fire whenever you absolutely need to, at least if you're playing on a populated server. Okay, so our final tip today, which is coming in at number 10, is probably to me the best and most useful tip that I've ever had when playing SCUM, and that is going to be to simply use a map on Google in order to figure out where things are. I do have a link to the one that I'm using in this screen here, but they can show some extremely useful information, such as where do cars spawn, where do boats spawn, where are military bases, where are all sorts of different things that can be useful to you in a number of different ways. So I highly encourage, especially if you have 2 monitors, that you throw this up on your second monitor while you're playing, as it will help you figure out where things are, at least until you get to know the area around you. Alright, well that's going to be it today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Game Advisor. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button if you found it useful, and comment down below if there's anything we missed out on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.